So Andrew, end of 2025, how does it feel to be barreling down towards 2026?
Yeah, it's been an incredibly fast year.
So we're going to go through our top 3 standout moments for the Brink. Man of the year.
Man of the year. I had a short list on this one, and nearly the winner was...
Moment of the year. What's your moment?
It's a no-brainer for me. It's the hostage return.
WTF of the year.
Mine was the timing of the recognition of the state of Palestine.
Yes. Funniest moment of the year. I've had mine.
What we're really seeing is a flood libel. But actually, do you know what? The one that made me giggle was the face of that tech executive who was caught at the Coldplay concert.
Oh, look at these two. All right, come on. You're okay? Oh, what?
It's only a matter of time until AI produces that same scene, only with Owen Jones and the Ayatollah. Right, now for shit of the year.
So that is 2025 on the brink.
That's a wrap.
That's done. 2026, what's the brink going to
we've got some good plans, haven't we?
We do.
So Andrew, end of 2025, how does it feel to be barreling down towards 2026?
Yeah, it's been an incredibly fast year, an incredibly fast-paced year. I can't believe it's December. I can't believe we've had Christmas already, and 2026 is on the horizon. It's been highs and lows, I think, internationally, and we're going to talk about some of those today. Yeah,
so we're going to go through our top 3 standout moments for the Brink, and then go through a kind of category show of shit of the year, of man of the year, of woman in the year, and see how far we get. So first of all, top 3 standout moments for the Brink. Should we trade them? What's your
So
top?
I think Yoav Gallant was the one for me. I think it was a military nerd piece more than anything.
Yeah.
It was great to get insight into that strategic thinking and how someone who is in that incredible position just after 7th of October, remarkable challenge that confronted him. And also going from failure into some incredible victories, and just him talking through his thought processes and revealing, I think, some of the tensions at the top of the government as well. I thought that was a fascinating insight.
It was interesting, wasn't it? Because we did that interview just after Britain had shamefully recognised the Palestinian state, and he was scathing about Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
There was some line about him saying that we need not just leaders, but leadership, or something along those lines.
So my first question really is about your opinion and your thoughts about Keir Starmer and his decision-making over the weekend.
Well, I think that Israel is in a very bitter war in 7 fronts. And we were good enough to defeat our enemies and to make sure that we survive. It wasn't the situation on October 7. And, I have been to the battlefield on October 8, and I was watching with my own eyes what happened there. And the bodies were still on the ground, some of them. And I have seen what happened to the kids, to the children. And I learned to know what happened to the women. So by putting unconditional declaration that said time and again by many countries, including Great Britain, that the reward for this massacre is a Palestinian state. This is absolutely 180 degrees to dignity, to respect, to the loss of the life of the people. And I think that this is done only for domestic politics. And this is very sad. It's time that leaders will behave like leaders, not like politicians.
And I think he shows that he got Keir Starmer as well, because that guy's been a vortex of leadership.
Yeah.
I used to teach that at the Royal Military Academy, and it's not a checklist. Leadership's never a checklist, but there are certain things you do need to do. Like set a moral example and, lead by example, be decisive, all of these things. And, we just have this empty wetsuit at the top of the UK government right now. And I think Gallant absolutely skewered him.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously there's no way of, or we don't teach leadership to our political leaders. They just pick it up as they go along, or have a natural psychopathy, or whatever it is. And it shows.
Yeah, and so, some people are born leaders. The great man theory of leadership, if you want to get into into the literature. There are people who are just naturally good at it. I had a friend, Steve, who was killed in Afghanistan, Captain Steve Healy. He was a Royal Welsh officer. Honestly, the guy was just born to it.
Really?
He just had it. But those people are few and far between.
Yeah.
And we're certainly lacking it at the top of our government right now.
I mean, I think the top of my list in terms of the standout guests was Yossi Cohen, who he and Gallant, I think they were in consecutive weeks, weren't they?
Yes. Right.
But they had quite an interesting interrelationship because Cohen was very scathing about Gallant, saying that he was part of some kind of cozy cabal of IDF top brass who all kind of were in this echo chamber and supported each other and knew each other socially. Whereas he saw himself as an outsider, just putting the country, the job first, and not letting anything get in between. But then Gallant was insistent that his plan would have been correct during the war, to attack Hezbollah first and then prosecute the campaign in Gaza. And so there's a lot of friction there. And I got the general feeling that there was, everyone's starting to try to back away from, not starting, everyone's backing away quickly from the disaster of October the 7th and trying to position themselves for what comes next.
And you know what, it's really interesting. So 2 points. First of all, general hindsight has never lost a battle. And everyone's got an opinion, particularly actually with the Israelis. I went to a conference in Israel with 13 Israeli academics and there were 26 opinions in the room.
It's true what they say about Jews.
It's very anti-Semitic. But yeah, they, it was clear from both that there were tensions right at the top.
Yeah.
Even on the direction the war should go right from the beginning. I think that maybe does play out in how the strategy around that war has developed over time and, didn't seem to have that clear end state. And then Trump stepped in and put his marker on it. And it's all been a bit of a make it up as you go along kind of effort. And I think that was reflected in those two interviews. It was really telling.
Yeah. I heard somebody comparing the American military to the Israeli military, saying that with the Americans, they spend 90% of their time planning, 5% of their time doing, and then 5% analysing what they've just done. Whereas the Israelis spend 100% or 95% of their time doing and then 5% undoing what they've done and doing something else, which kind of seemed to sum it up. But I think the moment in the Yossi Cohen interview that has got to stand out for both of us,
we know what it is,
was the one that went viral.
But it went viral with Press TV and Middle East Eye.
With all the worst people in the world. And in case anybody's missed it, it was where he talked very compellingly and vividly about the pager operation, how it wasn't that wasn't it. Israel's been using that technique of tampered equipment for many, many years in different theatres of war, and it still has tampered equipment, manipulated equipment in different enemy countries around the world, and that was seized upon by the anti-Semites as evidence of a Jewish conspiracy.
Did you see any surprises in Gaza?
Surprises?
Yeah.
You mean intelligence surprises?
Pages, walkie-talkies. Do you know how many treated equipment do we have in these countries? You don't. I do.
You mean you mean booby-trapped equipment?
Not only booby-trapped.
And spying.
Manipulated equipment. All right?
In which countries are you talking about?
All the countries that you can imagine.
And not Gaza?
Not Gaza.
And also it set the worst actors in the Middle East flapping quite clearly.
Yeah.
About what might be bugged and what might not.
Yeah. Suddenly people aren't using their phones anymore, getting a new burner.
Their podcast industry's gone through the floor in case one of these is loaded.
Yeah. Brilliant. But it's amazing because these people totally ignore all the attempted skullduggery done by the other side. We had a Hamas plot that was foiled in Europe just a couple of weeks ago with arrests in London and across Europe.
And one in Los Angeles just this week.
Exactly, yeah. And their attempts at dirty tricks and all that sort of stuff, just that doesn't bother them. It's only when the Israelis fight back that suddenly it's a Jewish conspiracy. So who was next on your list of three?
So I think Nick Timothy.
Yeah.
I think Nick, I really enjoyed that. I thought he was eloquent. I thought he was impassioned. He had a huge amount of understanding of that extremism issue that he was talking about. And I thought he gave a very compelling interview, like from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, he's been just a brilliant campaigner against the efforts to proscribe Islamophobia and also the Aston Villa debacle, banning Maccabi Tel Aviv. And, I was at the Conservative Friends of Israel Hanukkah reception in the House of Lords a few weeks ago. And Nick came in behind me a little bit late, and he got, I think, 3 or 4 rounds of applause. More than one person. Kemi mentioned him in her speech. Other people mentioned him too, and a couple of people just really, really love the guy. He's really making a name for himself as he's not showy at all. He's diligent, he's thorough, but he's very passionate about protecting Britain from these extremists.
Yeah, and that came across. That really came across in the interview, and that's what I would definitely recommend people go back and look at if they haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Especially as there's still information coming out about all these issues. We're seeing that rise in extremism. At the time of us recording now, it's just today that Meta's announced that it's going to start cracking down on some of these slogans. And we're going to see, I think, and hopefully by the time this is released, we'll have seen how that played out.
Globalise the Intifada. Now you can't say it anymore.
Yeah, well, you can, as long as there's nobody there to be offended. So
we'll see how that go wrong.
Well, look, I was having this conversation earlier. What we have is a set of laws that really aren't fit for purpose. They were designed in a pre-social media era. They were designed for when we were, frankly, a far more civilized country than we are now.
Yeah.
And people could be relied on to mostly behave themselves. And now we've seen this fragmentation. All of a sudden, particularly online, we've got public order law from that pre-internet era.
Yeah.
It just doesn't stand up to scrutiny or to the situation that it needs.
I think there's a deep point there, isn't there, as well? Because our laws. I mean, if everybody started breaking the law at once, the police wouldn't be able to obviously handle it. So you require people to generally behave themselves for any society to work, and police by consent. And for people to generally behave themselves, there needs to be a unified culture. This is the way we behave. This is the norms that most people adhere to.
These are our values and standards.
These are the things we believe in. These are the things we try to protect. And I just feel that the rate of immigration has really taken its toll on that unified culture, as well as the coarsening of social media and the aftermath of
and the stovepiping of social media as well. I mean, you think back to the past.
Stovepiping.
Yeah, so people now live in stovepipes that barely interact. Like you used to have people would sit around a TV together of an evening, and then you'd talk about the TV show that you saw on one of the 5 channels. It worked the next day. Yeah, I mean, you're a bit older than me. I don't remember those days. But
we're the same age.
You're older, just saying. But we don't have that anymore. You don't, even if you, I remember at school, you go out and buy the latest album by whoever it was, and people would all listen to it and talk about it. You don't have that now. You can stream whatever you want, whenever you want it. And there's been that sort of fragmentation of even those cultural things like music and books and TV that used to bind us together. So it's not just the immigration issue. It's also the fact that, we have that fragmentation of culture.
It's many things together, isn't it? And actually it's something that's even deeper than that, because, Israel, as an example, has got the same access to social media as we have, high immigration for obvious reasons. And yet it's got culturally, it's more coherent, happier, much more able to cope with threat, with difficulties, with stress. Anyway, so my next guest, Neil Ferguson. Neil Ferguson.
Yes. Our biggest hit.
Yeah, our top hitter. Our top hitter. I think that the bit that stood out for me about his tour de force of a conversation was where he situated the Gaza protests within the overall movement of progressive radicalism, and said that first they tried climate campaigning, and that wasn't very good. I think the way he put it was just a lot of people throwing soup over paintings. And you think of the Just Stop Oil people stopping the traffic. It just didn't. It annoyed people. It pissed the public off. It didn't really
more
cut
harm
through.
than good for the cause, didn't it?
Yeah. Then there was Black Lives Matter, a huge moment, global moment, much bigger than the climate moment. But it kind of required, maybe I think this is my thought rather than his, but it kind of required people, white people, the majority, to see themselves as guilty of the thing that they're very upset about. And that's quite a hard sell to people.
Especially when it started in America, where they do have that history of slavery.
Yeah.
Where you can quite clearly point to a moment in time where black people in America were very disadvantaged.
Yeah.
Whereas over here, we've got a very different kind of origin of our black population. They came over in the 50s as people who were wanted, and people who came here to work and contribute towards society as full members. I mean, of course, there was racism and that sort of stuff, but it wasn't the same as having been your ancestors being forcibly trafficked over from Africa.
Yeah.
And so it's a very different paradigm in the UK. So I don't think it maps across in the same way.
No, and I think in that Black Lives Matter moment, every Western country tried to persuade itself that it was America, but actually it isn't. And I think it had a limited appeal for that reason, or a limited shelf life, the moment passed. But when you come to the Gaza situation, it ticks so many other boxes. Because for a start, you no longer have to blame yourself. You can just blame the Jews. If you're a white person, it's not me. There's no cost. Everything is outsourced. Everything is externalized. The Jews were as evil as we all thought all the time. Look at how all the babies they're killing, kind of thing. But also that moment of a niche radical issue was supported by this huge mechanism, state-funded mechanisms, funded by Qatar, by Turkey, by Russia, by Beijing. And supported by the United Nations, and supported by so much of the mainstream media and all the social media warriors. So there was a force multiplier. If that was your cause, you were one of the Kafir kids, you had all these mechanisms of support with millions and billions probably of dollars behind your cause already. So it just really took off. But Neil said, he said that actually I didn't know this, but most of the Gaza protesters, according to him, they're more likely to be female than male. And he said, really, they don't know anything about it. It's their social life. Which I thought he's obviously a university professor. He's seen a lot of it, and he sees that what they're really motivated by is the trend.
I think there is a social life of the protesting crowd. People, particularly as they grow older, forget the fun of being in the crowd. And therefore they underestimate the banality of the motives of most people who participate in demonstrations. As has become clear from the studies that have been done of the protests that followed October 7th, the bizarre protests against Israel, when one might have expected protests in support of Israel after those atrocities, we can see a number of interesting features. Many people who took part in the campus protests turned out not to have the remotest understanding of the issues that they were protesting about. They didn't know which river, they didn't know which sea, and they were chanting from the river to the sea. Secondly, the encampments that occurred where people pitched tents and sought to visibly disrupt campus life disproportionately happened at the elite institutions that charge the highest tuition and are most prestigious. And thirdly, again, somewhat counterintuitively, the protests were disproportionately female.
Well, also, interestingly enough, what Dr. Rolly Petter, a good friend of mine, wrote in the Jewish Chronicle, was talking about the weaponization of empathy. You know, they're targeting your empathy. They're making you feel that pity, that sympathy for people who are suffering. And they're weaponizing that feeling and turning it into something slightly almost perverted.
Yeah.
You know, they're perverting a good emotion and making it bad.
Yeah.
And if you read your psychology journals, as I do, as a psychology student, women have generally higher levels of empathy than men. So they're very much the target audience.
And the image of suffering babies, which is the thing that's really come to the fore in good old blood libel tradition, I suppose is more likely to affect women than men, perhaps.
Yeah, of course. And babies are suffering. There's no two ways about it. But
they're not but that's not it.
But the context is is kind of missing if you don't understand exactly what's going on.
And some of the babies are AI as well, that we see.
Well, we've seen those images recently, haven't we, of the flooding in Gaza?
Yeah.
When it's 20 degrees. And I was in Israel just before we recorded this, and it did rain one day.
Yeah, you told me there was a storm in
It was a heavy old storm, but it was over pretty quickly, and now it's 20 degrees on average.
Yeah.
So what we're really seeing is a flood libel.
You know what? Funniest moment of the year. It's coming later. I couldn't think of one. That's mine. Thank you. Thank you for that. Blood libel. Brilliant.
I did wait until you took a swig of your drink.
Well, I'm not sure I can come back from that. Right, next one. Who's next on your list for the third and final moment of the year for the Brink?
Remind me, what did we say? Looking at?
I think it was Nick Timothy.
Yoav Gallant.
Bari Weiss.
Bari Weiss, yeah. So our very first interview for the Brink, Bari Weiss.
Yeah.
And, what to say about that? That was fantastic. She spoke to us in the middle of the takeover deal that was going through. She carved
200
out
billion or whatever it was.
Yeah, she carved out time during her day to come speak to random British bald guys on the internet. So, first of all, that was really cool that she took the time out for us. But we had that incredibly powerful moment, didn't we? Where you asked her about her reflections upon the book she'd written about anti-Semitism, and you asked her about, looking back on the chapter, the excerpt that you read to her.
Yeah.
And she was visibly moved at one point.
There are many forces in our world insisting again that all Jews must die, but there's a force far, far greater than that, and that's a force of who we are. And you conclude, do we believe in our own story? Can we make it real once again? I believe we can, and that we must. Hearing those words again, all these years later, in this different post-October the 7th context, how do they strike you? Do you still feel that way? And how's the world changed in those intervening years?
Let me just think for a second. It's really emotional to hear you read that, weirdly. I haven't looked back at that book since I wrote it.
Take your time.
No, I'm just like, it's changed so much. It's just unbelievable how much has changed. And also how little has changed, which is maybe the answer.
Yeah, she teared up.
She needed a moment to compose herself.
Yeah, we had to cut a bit where she was just trying to compose herself because she was about to cry. Yeah, I read her it was the final passage of her 2019 book, I think it was, How to Fight Antisemitism, which was based around the Tree of Life shooting.
Yeah.
And she, of course, had her bat mitzvah there and knew about it. And, to look back at a book about the Tree of Life shooting and to think those were halcyon days compared to now is just, I think that's really the emotion that got to her probably. It's like things are so much bleaker than we could have possibly imagined when we thought we'd hit rock bottom. There was another rock bottom further down.
Yeah, and then she had that epic line that we've used time and time again, that it's not a crisis of trust in the media, it's a crisis of trustworthiness.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that's happened is people are like, there's a crisis of trust, and that's how it's talked about. It's like, no, there's a crisis of trustworthiness. You should not trust something that's not worthy of your trust. How can we build things that are worthy of trust again? And, if I sort of, what is sort of like the theme of the work we're trying to do at the Free Press, and maybe the work even beyond the Free Press that I'm trying to do in the world, it's trying to see if sort of after that shattering, it's possible to rebuild institutions worthy of our trust once again.
And it's just a great point that trust needs to be earned.
Yeah, it's not our fault that we don't trust you. It's your fault for
being untrustworthy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought that was an incredibly profound comment.
Yeah.
We've definitely deployed on a few occasions since.
Yeah, I mean, and just to show the range of guests we've had, I mean, my third on my list for a highlight was Tom Holland. You couldn't get two more different people than Bari Weiss and Tom Holland, both sharp as tacks and brilliant, but in very different ways. And Tom, I mean, we had such a fascinating conversation, but I think the moment that stands out for me was, viewers and listeners wouldn't know this because we've edited it, but there was a bit where right at the end of the conversation I said, okay, Tom, thank you very much. And then we had an after chat where the cameras were still rolling, but we didn't really think about it. It was, we'd finished. And that was when he kind of relaxed into this extraordinary kind of intellectual musing about the role of peoplehood in Christianity and in Judaism and in modern nation states.
The dissolution of peoplehood was a fundamental part of Christianity's appeal. It was the Romans struggled to get a hold on it. They couldn't make sense of a people who said, well, we have no mother city, we have no fatherland, we have no fields or soil that is ours. We are the Christian people, we are universal. That's what, Catholic is. And there's a sense in which that has become a kind of liberal ideal, and it's more truly Christian than anything that the Christian world has known for a very long time.
But it was really, he was arguing that Christians initially were the original people without peoplehood, in that there was no racial identification of them. They had no soil or land or place. What united them was a belief in Christ, which is still the case. And he was saying that the Romans just didn't know what to make of these people. Fast forward, Christian in a few centuries, and suddenly you have Christendom, and you have this rootedness with Christian countries and Christian armies and a Christian society. And he seemed to be saying that now the kind of breakdown in peoplehood that we're seeing in secular society in the Christian West or the post-Christian West is a return of an early Christian instinct. He thinks it's still coming from Christianity. He was saying that, Christians obviously build cathedrals, but there's also an instinct to tear those cathedrals down from within Christianity too, in different reformists and different nonconformists and things. And it just struck me that we had a bit of an exchange about the role of peoplehood and the Jewish position in that, how the Jewish sense of peoplehood is in a way seen as a rebuke to people who are trying to undo their own. It was really interesting, and we'll play it for viewers to see again. But he was just stunningly brilliant, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was. I listened to that because obviously that was one of the ones you pre-recorded. Before I came aboard on this fine project, and I was listening to that in Oslo airport, waiting for a flight. I was on my tour of Norway, and I was absolutely mesmerised by that one. I thought the depth and the range of the subjects that he got into, were completely absorbing. So even as a member of the Brink team, I found that one absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, he was a virtuoso intellectual performance. Yeah, brilliant. Him and Ed Hussein was also virtuoso. Neil Ferguson. We've had some brilliant guests.
Yeah, more to come though.
Right, now for shit of the year. Not literally, metaphorically, shit of the year. Who was your shit of the year this year?
I've gone for Donald Trump.
Okay. I thought I might have seen that one coming. Yeah. Why, Andrew?
Look, I mean, we'll give him two things. We'll give him two things before we go on to shit of the year. Mm-hmm. First of all, he has resolved to a degree, the southern border porousness that America was suffering, and got a grip of some of that illegal migration. And he did get the hostages out of Gaza. So tick, tick, well done. Everything else, though, has been a cataclysmic disaster. We saw the real Trump in his comments about Rob Reiner when Rob Reiner was murdered.
That was
utterly despicable.
Yeah,
just a terrible human being.
Yeah. Just remind me about what he said.
So he went on a rant that Rob Reiner used to be great, but he suffered from Trump derangement syndrome and basically was jubilant that he'd been murdered.
It was as if he'd been killed because he hated Trump in some way.
Yes, I know. It's just a bizarre thing to say and a real low point morally, I think. But, how do we pick out Trump's low points? From the betrayal of Ukraine to trying to rip apart the foundations of the international order, the international security order. He's made us all less safe. He's made Americans poorer. He is just the worst occupant of the White House in history, and I include Trump 2016 in that as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I would add to his good points some of the culture war stuff. I mean, it's a crude instrument, is putting it mildly, and the way in which he's been wreaking havoc with the wrecking ball has taken out a lot of stuff that's been good that shouldn't have been taken out. But I kind of feel that I wonder, without Trump in the world, I'm not denying all the evils, particularly on Ukraine, but Europe would still be trying to sustain these obsessions with identity, the lamentable situation of defense, the ignoring of the immigration problem, the economic woes, welfareism. It's all still happening, but you feel that Trump is destroying the free speech issue. He's really attacking those things, and those are things that need to be dealt with and restored.
Yes and no. I don't see that he's making any positive changes. What he's doing is actually making the EU double down, I think, particularly European countries. I don't see any changes in the way they're doing things. And then his, of course, explicit intention to back some of the most divisive political parties we have is truly concerning. So, I think for any positives that come from that, I think is vastly outweighed by the manner in which he's done it and the negatives that then come from that.
Yeah, maybe.
And even the hostage release, the price he's paid to Qatar and Turkey, I suspect may come and bite us in the longer term.
Yeah.
But I'll take a good definite over a bad possible at this point.
Yeah.
So getting the hostages home, great.
Well, my shit of the year, I had to think through quite a long list for this one. Initially, I was thinking it's got to be either Tucker Carlson or Nick Fuentes or Piers Morgan for interviewing both of them. But then I settled on our friend Ayub Khan, the MP for Birmingham Perry Bar. You talked about Nick Timothy and Aston Villa already. But just thinking through the chronology, I mean, he was elected after a very fractious campaign. There was violence or intimidation that was meted out by his supporters, along with other Gaza independent supporters against their Labour opponents. The most, disturbing political campaign in British history until the next one, I think, is the feeling that I get. Tires being slashed, candidates being forced to hide in churches to get rid of them, campaigns of harassment and intimidation. So that's the background. Comes to Parliament. The draw is made with the Israeli team. He starts a petition based on wanting to boycott the Israelis, mentions hooliganism, but as a side point, which is admitted on television, actually, Urdu television. Then, when people get up in arms about it, suddenly the main point becomes the hooliganism retrospectively. Manages to dupe the public, really. The public were alongside that. I mean, the polls showed at the height of the row that the public supported him in saying that, yes, it's all about public safety, when it clearly wasn't to most of us. And then when people started to call him anti-Semitic, he said, that's just Islamophobic, you're trying, and threatened to sue them. And then rounded it all off by his condolences for the Bondi Beach victims. And the whole thing just, made me think of the Freud's kettle logic from his book, The Interpretations of Dreams in 1900. Are you familiar with it?
No, I'm not, actually. Yeah,
so
you have to enlighten me.
So he said, he's talking about dreams as being the royal road to the unconscious. They sort of give you the truth in different contradictory ways. He said, so the kettle logic is this. Firstly, I've never borrowed a cauldron from you. Secondly, your cauldron was already leaking when you gave it to me. And thirdly, it was intact when I gave it back to you. And that kind of summed up Ayub Khan's shifting positions over the times. I think shit of the year for me, Ayub Khan, congratulations.
Yeah, and I'd like to come back with you like you did with me over Trump, but I've got nothing to add. Apart from the fact that I have made a bit of a fun game of ratioing Ayub Khan on Twitter recently, which has been quite good fun.
Yeah.
So,
well, fair enough.
Fully agree with you on that one.
Man of the year.
Man of the year. I had a short list on this one, and nearly the winner was Philip Rivers, quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts, who's come back in at the age of 44 as a grandfather after 4 years out of the NFL.
I've got to say, I had no idea who he was. I was trying to tough it out and hope the penny would drop.
So number 17, Philip Rivers, was nearly my choice.
Okay.
But actually, I've decided to go for the anti-Ayub Khan. So I'm selecting former Brink guest Nick Timothy as my man of the year.
Brilliant.
My other potential candidate was Unai Emery, manager of Aston Villa, but I'm going for another Villa connection. And Nick, I think, has just been remarkable and terrier-like in his dogged pursuit to expose the lies behind Ayub Khan's little campaign, to also hold West Midlands Police accountable, which I think is very important.
And the battle's far from over.
It is, but a lot of the progress we've made, even down to recalling West Midlands Police to Parliament to go over their evidence again, has been thanks to Nick's incredible advocacy to get to the bottom of this and avoid what is yet another libel against Jews.
Yeah. I mean, after the Hanukkah party, when he received those rounds of applause, I messaged him and I said, man of the hour. And he wrote, that was excruciating. So I'm not sure he's necessarily going to be enjoying all this adulation.
So if I get a rude WhatsApp from Nick after this, okay, got it.
But that speaks well of him, doesn't it? That he's not in it for the glamour. That really comes across. He's in it for the cause. He really believes it.
Good stuff.
My man of the year, right. My man of the year, Benjamin Netanyahu. And I say that really not necessarily because he's the hero of the year, but because I think he's been the most interesting character of the year for me. Because, if you look at him in the round as a leader, he's so fascinating. Bears a lot of the responsibility for October the 7th. Let's be frank. It was his security doctrine that seemed to be working so well until it spectacularly wasn't. Holding off the others, holding off the enemy on the other side of the border and concentrating on your own diplomatic and economic development. It seemed to be working well until it all came crashing down in spectacular fashion. And yet fast forward to today, and militarily, Israel is in the most powerful position that it's been since 1967. Diplomatically and culturally, it's never been more isolated than it is now. Bibi has been an extraordinary showman at the UN. There was that moment where he authorized the attack on Hezbollah simultaneously with the UN, and where he had his message to Hamas broadcast through speakers that he delivered, the speech that he delivered at the UN itself, General Assembly. And just as a powerful, and of course the attack on the way he manipulated Trump, frankly, or maybe manipulated is not quite the right word, but got Trump on board for the Iranian strike was masterful. The Israelis went ahead then with the confidence that Trump would be unable to avoid this big win, and then Trump got on board. So that was masterful. And of course, hugely divisive. I mean, in Israel, it feels like all of politics comes down to your opinion about one person. It's so toxic in so many ways, so divisive. He's been in bed with these extremists, which is inexcusable in many ways. And yet at the same time, the moderates refuse to sit with him in his coalition, hugely driven by his own ambition. That's beyond dispute. I mean, you and I have both spoken to people who know him and have worked with him for many years, not naming any names, but, one of them told me that when he knew Bibi initially years ago, he was, I think, 90% for the state of Israel and 10% for himself. And now it hasn't even reversed. There's not even 10% that he's for the state of Israel. It's all for himself. Somebody else told us that when Bibi hugs his kids, he can't really do it. He's just sort of, remember that? That was a conversation we both had. He's sort of stiff, and he doesn't really see the world outside his own immediate sphere, even with his kids and things. I mean, all of this, and there's the corruption charges. And again, we spoke in the last one of the recent episodes about how, in my opinion, Bibi's corruption charges pale into insignificance compared to Keir Starmer and Lord Ali's relationship. But, I just think that it's all just so interesting. Such a bold, very flawed, very charismatic leader who's making history in all these different ways. And ultimately, he's got the balls to try to protect his people with all the flaws and all the criticism baked in. And I just think that boldness is what makes him, for me, Man of the Year.
Well, I told you I met him last year, and he was the most charismatic person I think I've ever met. The way the guy dominates a room is quite something. He's a real force of energy. Like, you can feel the energy pouring off him. By the same token, I'd never buy a used car from him.
Yeah,
is the line I've used a few times, but it just stands so true. And yeah, he's made a lot of mistakes during this war, and I think he did prolong Gaza longer than he needed to, and had to be banged over the head by Trump to agree to the ceasefire deal. But as you say, he is undeniably, when history books come to be written about this period of time, he is one of the characters that will stand out and head and shoulders above others in terms of just the impact he's made.
Yeah, extraordinary. Woman of the Year.
Woman of the Year. Mine's a slightly obscure one. People may or may not have heard of Eve Barlow.
Yep.
She's on Substack, very prominent on X as well. And she's one of the few people whose writing has really moved me this year. The way she's written about the challenges faced by not only Israel, but also Jews worldwide and anti-Semitism. The way she's articulated herself, a really gifted writer. She's the person who's written probably the most articles that I've just, slapped the desk and gone, yes, you've absolutely crushed it. But in a way that's so compassionate and so eloquent that it just makes an incredibly compelling case. So that's mine.
She's Scottish, isn't she?
She is originally, yeah. I think she's spends time between America and Israel now. But
right.
But yeah, so Eve Barlow, my Woman of the Year.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I know her. I don't know her very well at all. I know her stuff. But yeah, interesting. She's definitely a leading activist voice in the firmament. Yeah.
There you go. So how about yours? Who have you picked?
Oh, I picked Melania Trump.
It's a Trump fest.
It's a Trump fest, yeah. So he's
full MAGA. He should have brought a little red hat for you.
Well, but Melania I think she's underestimated, Melania. She's interesting. I mean, she's from Slovenia, which is a tiny country, former Yugoslavia, former communist, obviously. 2 million people or whatever. So from this very obscure place with a feeling for communism and what it means. She's the first non-native English speaker and the first naturalized citizen to become First Lady.
Twice.
She's only the second Catholic First Lady. Can you guess who the first one was?
Would it have been Jackie Kennedy?
Yeah, got it. Jackie Kennedy. But that's not why. I think she's Woman of the Year because of what she's been doing for Ukraine.
With the children.
With the children. getting the release of those children was a really exemplary achievement from within the White House. And from what I hear, she is, funnily enough, the one check on Trump's Russophilia, that partly because of her background in Slovenia, because of her relations, the way she has sort of empathy for the plight of the children and things, that when Trump has a meeting with Putin and goes full on Russia pro-Russian, she's the one to bring up the kids or bring up things that he might care about, and then he think, oh mate, so I know it's difficult to imagine Trump being more pro-Russian than he has been, but like I say, just when you think there isn't a new low, there always is. And I think I've heard that Melania is one of the people who's been holding him back from the worst excesses of himself.
Yeah, and the children issue is just so incredibly heartbreaking. Tens of thousands of children abducted from their families, taken to Russia, put through essentially brainwashing camps. And even those who've returned, some of them have returned not being able to speak Ukrainian to their parents and their families. It's astonishing. And my colleague Megan has done loads of work on this. She's leading a project on it at the moment, actually. And the stuff she's uncovering is heartrending. So if that's true and Melania has helped with that, then I think that's a fully worthy nomination.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, isn't it? This practice of kidnapping children and re-educating them. It's not just the Russians who do it; it's the Chinese as well. It's a communist thing. It's seeing people. It's not valuing what we believe to be the sacred bond between a parent and a child, but to see children as being property of the state, of the community, or not of the state more than the community. There to be educated and to become pawns in the greater game. I mean, the Chinese have done it with Tibetan children. The occupation that nobody ever mentions, far worse than most occupations in the world, far worse than the Turkish occupation of Northern Cyprus, far worse than the Israeli occupation, such as it is, if you want to call it an occupation, on the West Bank. I mean, the Chinese occupation of Tibet is, in my view, could be termed a genocide in the repressive measures that they take, the torture, the disappearances, the secret police, and the kidnapping of all the children. But no one talks about it. So I think it's a communist thing to go for the kids.
Yeah, it's that lack of valuing human life as an independent agent, isn't it? It's the antithesis of our Western culture. But who was it said, give me the boy before 14 years old and I'll give you the man?
Isn't that a Jesuit thing?
I don't know.
I think
it might be a Jesuit thing, but it applies though. Children are so malleable at that age.
Yeah.
And as a Catholic, I'm not super keen on the Jesuits anyway. But good stuff.
Right.
So, what are we on to next?
We are on to the moment of the year.
Okay.
Moment of the year. What's your moment?
It's a no-brainer for me. It's the hostage return.
Yeah.
For all my criticism of Trump, achieving that is quite something. And I've been to Israel so many times and seen the psychic damage, the knowledge that those people were in Gaza, stuck in the tunnels, the way Hamas used them to release. I was in Tel Aviv when they released the videos of Eden Yerushalmi and Hersh Goldberg-Berlin and that group that then were later killed. And as the news dropped, I was in a room full of people and you could physically see the news landing. You could physically see the body language changing as those came in. And then, of course, what those poor survivors went through. We saw those videos of the emaciated people and the brutal torture they were subjected to have all of them come home. I'm friends with a number of hostage families. And the sheer relief and joy that I absolutely shared with my friends, those hostages coming home, I don't think that could possibly be beaten in 2025.
It's something I think that people outside of Israel sometimes find difficult to relate to, the sense of family that unites a nation. But it's something that's so key, so fundamental to the Israeli character and to the Israeli success as well. I mean, like my moment of the year was another Israeli-related one. It was Operation Midnight Hammer.
Okay.
The strike on the Iranians' nuclear program. I mean, it's funny because it happened overnight, as these things do. I remember waking up and looking at my phone and thinking, "Fucking hell, they've actually done it." And I was one of those who's been arguing for some time that it needs to be done. I always felt nervous to say it needs to be done now because it's calling for war without really knowing the intelligence.
Without a clear casus belli, almost.
Yeah, and but they did it, and again, the boldness of Bibi. But the moment itself, I think, is when General Dan Kane and Pete Hegseth gave that update at the Pentagon. Do you remember where they talked about what a success it was? They described themselves as battle buddies, which is a bit nauseating. And it just became apparent that it had worked. I mean, it was such an astonishing success of taking out the air defenses, taking out the scientists, taking out, there was that feint, wasn't there, or that dupe where they got senior Iranian commanders into a certain place for a meeting by
the Air
giving
Force,
them,
wasn't it? It's the Air Force,
that was it.
Yeah.
And then wiping them all out at once by tracking their security details phones, because they weren't carrying phones and want to be tracked, but they tracked their bodyguards' phones. And I mean, it was all just brilliant, and actually very little loss of civilian life as far as we can see relative to a campaign of that scale, which is the opposite of what most people always say and are saying, and has delayed the nuclear program, set it back significantly. So I think that for me was the moment.
3 years is the estimate. 3 years, which is better than no years.
Yeah, much better than no years. And the Iranians, and it's the rebuilding now that the Israelis are much more on top of.
Yeah,
rebuilding from ground zero is going to be difficult for them because the Israelis are just completely all over them. So that for me was moment of
Rising Lion and Midnight Hammer, fantastic.
Yeah. Right, WTF of the year.
WTF, are we allowed to say what WTF stands for?
I think we're probably allowed to say what WTF stands for.
Fuck.
What the fuck of the year?
Yeah, mine was the timing of the recognition of the state of Palestine.
Yes.
Mind-blowing to me that they would do it then, whilst negotiations were ongoing, whilst the war was ongoing. I'm in favour of a state of Palestine at some point, in some form. That is, it's a long way off. Lots and lots of hoops to jump through before we get there. But to do it then, first of all, it derailed some of the hostage negotiations. And both sides have come out and said that. It encouraged Hamas to double down immediately. You had Hamas thanking the leaders of Canada, Australia, the UK, after what they'd done on 7th of October, the fact that they've been given a reward, prolonged the war, prolonged the suffering, not only of Israelis, but also of Palestinians, achieved nothing in return, gave away what has always been a key bargaining chip when it comes to negotiating peace in the Middle East. Just the most astonishing, blundering stupidity.
I think more than that, it felt like it was a strategically deployed move at a moment that would favour Hamas. Because at that time, I forget exactly what was happening, but there was a particular, it was a coordinated move, wasn't it, internationally?
Yeah, between those four countries. Yeah.
Well, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was just mind-blowingly stupid to me. Genuinely WTF.
My WTF moment was the BBC. The BBC's response to the Prescott report being leaked to the Telegraph.
Yes.
And which obviously the headline was that, they'd spliced together that Trump footage, but also there was all that stuff about BBC Arabic, about the trans agenda, the campaigning within the BBC, which kind of, that stuff got overshadowed by the focus on the Trump thing. And now he's suing allegedly for $10 billion. But the response was like, I mean, if you're trying to insist that you're an impartial broadcaster and you have this leak to contend with, what you don't do is then behave in a way that confirms the charges. And that's exactly what the BBC did. Rather than saying, we will redouble our efforts to be impartial, we'll take this stuff seriously, we'll make any systemic changes that we need to make, and we'll restore the trust of the public, they joined with the Liberal Democrats and The Guardian to say this is a right-wing plot. And it was just
unbelievable tone deafness.
Yeah. It was astonishing. And
it just shows you the complete lack of self-awareness they have.
Yeah.
The complete lack of self-awareness. I was very glad to see their head of news depart.
Yeah.
She gave that astonishing Zoom briefing that got leaked, where she was talking about how, you need to be careful when you're reporting and splitting out Hamas's civil service from Hamas's terrorists. And anyone who's a student of the Middle East will know that is a nonsense.
Both have been proscribed by the British government as terrorists.
Absolutely. And you've got the head of news briefing that.
Yeah.
Just it's been an astonishing 2 years plus since 7th of October with the BBC. They have absolutely increased anti-Semitism in this country. They have absolutely skewed the reporting of the Gaza war. Not just the BBC, plenty of others, Sky News and Alex Crawford and et al., get a good chuck up for that. But, how many times has the BBC been caught out? Look at Jeremy Bowen talking about the Al-Ahli hospital bombing, where he said, "Oh, I don't regret anything," even though he caused protests on the streets with his misreporting.
Yeah.
So yeah.
In fact, that reminds me of the Colin Brazier and Danny Cohen episode that we did, which was very, very, very brilliant. Sort of aspects of the inner workings of the BBC and Sky that I hadn't really thought about. I mean, it didn't occur to me that, as Colin was saying, that that when your viewership is going down, the measure of your success becomes the awards that you win from your peers. And so you need to produce the sort of coverage that's going to get awards. And that's going to be Israelophobic
play to the crowd,
stuff.
play to the home crowd.
Exactly. That was really interesting.
Can I just say, I think that growing audiences actually is less of a problem in this sense, and I hesitate before I throw myself into this simile in the company I'm in, but it's a little bit like two bald men fighting over a comb in terms of Sky and the BBC, because smartphones, independent media, what's happening online is stealing their lunch in audience terms. And actually, I think in some respects, they're reluctant to look their audience in the eye. And I think that was true on Brexit. I think it's true on migration. And I think what they still do, of course, is want a metric by which they can justify their license fee funded salaries in the BBC's case. Yeah. And the way they go about that is saying the metric that matters isn't ratings anymore because they're awful and declining, and the long-term trends are clear. The metric we will use to define success is industry baubles and accolades and the approbation of our peers.
Two more. Funniest moment of the year. I've had mine. You gave me out of the hole by giving me the flood libel.
Look, I racked my brains on this one. It's not been a particularly funny year,
no, it hasn't been
especially for someone who works professionally as a Middle East and Ukraine analyst. It's been pretty dark. But actually, do you know what? The one that made me giggle was the face of that tech executive who was caught at the Coldplay concert. Yeah. When they panned to the kiss cam and he was there. That was
pretty funny. Let's play that again.
It was his head of HR, I think, wasn't he? He was there with, and the face on the two of them I thought was quite priceless.
Yeah, so, play that again for viewers to enjoy.
That gave me a good chuckle, that one.
Oh, look at these two. All right, come on. You're okay? Oh, what? Either they're having an affair or they're just very shy.
It's only a matter of time until AI produces that same scene, only with Owen Jones and the Ayatollah. Sorry. Anyway, right, and our last thing, note of hope.
Note of hope for 2026.
Note of hope for 2026, if possible.
I know,
rack your brain,
isn't it? So US midterms, I'm hoping that the GOP will get decimated and that there will be a Congress that will hold Trump to account.
Yeah.
He has been a wrecking ball to the US Constitution. So I would like to see a Congress that holds President Trump accountable in 2026. And
the problem is, though, isn't it, that
the Democrats are insane. That's the problem.
Yes,
that is absolutely the problem.
Yes. I was thinking, how shall I put this? Because you've got the Republican Party. I mean, the old Republican Guard, who are proper conservatives. They're on their last legs. They're going to be probably gone pretty soon, and it's going to be wall to wall MAGA. And then on the Democrat side, I mean, they're just
absolute extremists. Yeah. But I think my logic here is that Trump has centralized so much constitutional power with the presidency where, frankly, it doesn't belong. A number of measures that are nakedly unconstitutional are being challenged in the Supreme Court, and Congress has been absent. It's, you're meant to have checks and balances, and they are missing right now. So even if it is a bunch of lunatic Democrats, that at least makes the 2028 election president more interesting, because people will see how lunacy thrives on both sides of the house. But at least it will hopefully recover some of the checks and balances that are supposed to be there that Trump has done his best to undermine.
I mean, it's not just Trump. It's been happening for decades, the gradual accumulation of powers in the office of president. And I mean, it's difficult to imagine any president running on a platform to say, I will reduce my own powers if you elect me. It's hard to see that. So it's the sort of thing that only goes one way, ratchet that only turns one way, But I also, such is Trump's ability to exert power over the mechanisms of state, the judiciary, and the military, and even Congress over time. I can't see it happening that he's going to be held to account.
Well, he could get impeached again. Who knows?
Maybe.
But yeah, it's a sad state of affairs.
The problem is, if you oppose Trump, you get pursued. You get, your security detail taken away.
But he's going to be a lame duck. He won't be able to stand again. And hopefully, the last 2 years of his term being, well, at least having more checks and balances than we've had so far, will give America a chance to reset for the next election and get past this fairly dreadful period of their history.
This is you being hopeful.
This is my best.
This is as good as it gets.
It looks pretty dark right now. I think the world over the last 12 months has become less safe, much less safe, thanks to the behaviour of the Americans across the board. I think that the Middle East is teetering on far more instability. I think if Trump gets his way over Russia, Ukraine, our stability in Europe will be grossly damaged. And then we're seeing, what he's doing in South America with Venezuela is potentially a little bit on the destabilizing side as well. Not saying the majority is in any way a good thing. But as always, when you go for foreign interventions, you need to know what comes next.
That's right.
And I'm not seeing any clear sign of that either. So 2026 could be a pretty shady year. And there's also a very high chance we'll go back to war in Gaza, I suspect.
Yes, I think that's
we'll see somebody getting stuck in there, almost certainly the IDF. But yeah, doesn't look great for me. So I'm just hoping there'll be some sort of a check coming in.
I feel like I want to discuss with you the instability in the Middle East, but we're getting towards the end, so haven't really got the time. But in a couple of sentences, why do you feel the Middle East is more unstable than it used to be?
So Turkey and Qatar, heavily empowered. Likewise, Syria, which has very strong links to Turkey. And what we're seeing is the development of a Muslim Brotherhood circle, if you will, to replace the Shia circle. Iran also potentially resurgent. They've just launched rockets at the Kurds in Iraq. The Houthis haven't yet gone away, although they've had some hits. But that empowerment of Turkey and Qatar in the hostage release deal is the one that I really worry about, because Turkey has some real military flex, and they're potentially getting F-35s now. And you've also got kind of some of the Gulf states playing both sides with China and the West as well. So it looks incredibly shaky from where I'm set.
Which brings me to my note of hope. I feel like I'm sort of backing into it a little bit. I mean, I was thinking about it, and I thought back to our recent episode with Bernard-Henri Lévy and how he was talking. I think we mentioned it in our analysis of it, but he was talking quite passionately about his belief in the foundational values of the West. And he pointed out how that Germany's Nazi period didn't destroy Germany. It didn't indelibly mean that Germany was doomed. Germany was able to reclaim the thread that it had previously lost to Hitler and build itself back as a democracy. And he thinks that the fundamentals of Western civilization are it exists on such a broad palette, such a long time scale. They've been growing for so many centuries, from Christendom, from the Christian medieval times through the Enlightenment and Industrial Revolution and so on, that they can't be so easily destroyed even by the things we're seeing now of immigration, social media, Trump, etc., etc.
Trump will not last forever, and the American creed is here since long. American creed will survive Donald Trump and even J.D. Vance. I'm sure of that. American creed is so strong, so full of spirit, so sophisticated that it will prevail. European values survived much worse than Trump. European values survived Hitlerism for 12 years. Survived in other parts of European continent, communism and Stalinism for decades. And it's still Europe. These sort of creeds are really evergreen.
And, I take some encouragement from that. And I'm not sure, as I said on the episode when we were talking about it, I'm not totally sure that things can't be destroyed. But I think that, as Tom Holland, his approach is to see everything that's taking place in our society as Christian, even the secular things, as informed by our centuries of Christian heritage, because we can't think outside that because it's so deeply embedded. And sometimes you can underestimate how deep those things go. how deep those values go, and how hard they might be to destroy. And just one more sort of offshoot idea from that is about Islam, and thinking about Ahmed al-Ahmed, the hero of Bondi Beach. And, of course, the left have been using him to say, don't criticize any Muslims ever again. But I think that really he joins up with, in my mind, with a lot of brave Muslims, particularly in Israel, who stood up for Jews on October the 7th, after October the 7th. Really notably, Lucia Harris, the TV anchor who, her and her husband rescued Jews on October the 7th and then gave a very moving monologue of defiance against Hamas afterwards. She's, of course, Muslim Arab, and many, many others. And we've got some here. Ed Hussein is a very good example of that. And I just think that even though Islam, the world of Islam on the whole, is in the grip of anti-Semitism and anti-Western fervor at the moment, I think back to Nazi Germany, which was in the grip of anti-Semitism, in the grip of fascism, in the grip of this cultural mania. Yet some brave Germans were fighting against it, and eventually it was defeated, and now Germany is free of that scourge. And so I look at these bigger movements in history, and I try to take hope from that. Maybe not for 2026 necessarily, but the next 20, 30, 40 years, it's not impossible that we'll be okay.
Okay, that's a high point. I like it. yeah, that's good. I'll take that all day long. So that is 2025 on the brink.
That's a wrap. That's a wrap.
Done. 2026. What's the brink going to?
We've got some good plans, haven't we?
We do.
Beginning with January the 19th. People hopefully will join us. Tickets are actually selling pretty fast, so there won't be that many left. But come and join us in person, in conversation at JW3 in North London with Rachel Riley, the Countdown presenter and campaigner, and Brendan O'Neill, the polemicist.
Yes, and inspiring writer.
And author of After the Pogrom, which is brilliant.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And then we're looking at a variety of
other stuff in the works, which
that we don't really want to talk about yet, do we?
Got to remain probably secret, don't you think? But they're big. They're big things.
But I think what we can do is just trail it, just a little breadcrumb.
Okay.
Just a little breadcrumb by saying that the Brink could be going international in 2026.
The Brink could be going international. The world on the brink. Brilliant. Okay, well, Happy New Year to you and Happy New Year to everyone at home.
So, Version, thanks for joining us in 2025, and we look forward to seeing you in 2026.